I'm Frank Vaughn, and it is January 16th, 2025, and it would have been my father's 79th birthday. I dedicate this video to him and his memory for no particular reason, just sentiment. I want to open this one up by talking about a tweet I made last night. Ottawa and the rest of Canada are upset that Alberta doesn't want to be the first over the wall to die. After Alberta has been pillaged to pay for the castle they are all going to hide in. Smith just wants her people to be able to eat. Scott Moe should be aligning Saskatchewan with her. Now, I want to put on the record that this is more a message of encouragement for Scott Moe than it is condemnation. He did fix his signature to the Premier's statement, but he has signaled that his heart is aligned more with Danielle Smith. I wish he would go harder and stronger because there's a lot of misunderstanding out there. And this is typical of that misunderstanding. This is an individual who responded saying that's definitely a huge stretch. I think most Canadians want a unified approach and country. I haven't heard from one single person they want Alberta to make the sacrifice for all of us. Now, it shouldn't be surprising that people who don't understand where the country is do not understand what happens when our leaders talk about cutting energy off to the Americans or slapping a huge tariff on our products that go south when the Americans are fully capable of replacing what they buy from us from other people in the interim. How do you like a 30-cent dollar? Do these people actually understand the economic consequences that are going to face your pocketbook? That the essentials that you rely on every single day to survive will enormously inflate in price and that the Canadian dollar will tank relative to the American dollar? The American dollar might suffer. The American economy might suffer. But we will be crushed, and nobody will be crushed more than Alberta if she is cut off from her business deals. Now, you might say, this is necessary for Canadian unity. This is necessary for our self-sufficiency. This is necessary for our national identity. And I've talked in other videos about how that national identity has been under perennial assault by the very same people who now pretend to be nationalists. They have instituted mass immigration policies which have flooded out our culture. They have demeaned the Canadian flag. They have demeaned our history. They have demeaned our national identity. They've taken down our statues. They've renamed our buildings. They've renamed our roadways. And in every single way, they have culturally destroyed Canada. But now all of a sudden they want to reawaken their nascent nationalism in the pursuit of destroying the country because we can't win a trade war with the Americans. Straight facts. Now let me talk about, jumping ahead a little bit too far here. I got to find this is actually, let's do this first. This is Chrystia Freeland, and this is a post by Canada Proud, and it says, breaking, Chrystia Freeland in preparation for her Liberal leadership bid is saying that she is opposed to the carbon tax. Here's Freeland 7 months ago trying to convince you that the carbon tax makes you richer. Was she lying then, or is she lying now? Or both. And that last line is actually key to the inherent contradiction of the current government, including Jagmeet Singh. It's not just limited to Liberals. Their ideas have destroyed this nation and brought us to this. Specifically, the ideas that they promoted under the banner of Justin Trudeau's leadership, which every single one of them supported. They all stood behind him. They all messaged their constituents. They all told you that a tax was wonderful for you. They all told you that the deconstruction of this country and our energy self-sufficiency, which we'll get into next, was good because of climate change, as if Canada can actually influence carbon levels in the world when we're completely dwarfed by everybody else. We're deconstructing our economy faster than anybody else for no gain and no specific reason. And now all of a sudden, they want to talk about diversification of our energy exports because we're facing this American threat, an American threat that they all created. So Chrystia Freeland here is simply demonstrating what is common in the Liberal Party, which is to switch their story without ever providing any kind of introspective look. You note when she talks, she never says we were wrong outright. The very thing that she supported yesterday, you're supposed to believe that she doesn't support today without her admitting that it was a mistake. It's like Orwell. In 1984, one day you're at war with one person, and the next day you're at war with someone else, and you're supposed to forget everything that happened. And in Orwell, they're successful. But luckily for us, we're not quite in Orwellian times. Now, let me just get rid of Christia, and let's focus on what they've done, because this is from the Epoch Times. And if you don't read the Epoch Times, or you're not subscribed to the Epoch Times, I'm just going to move myself over a little bit, you might want to consider it, because they're a really good news organization. They actually produce a print edition, and it's very cheaply acquired, and it has great reading in it. I'm not subscribed right now, and they're not paying me for this. This is just a free plug. I like what they do. You should consider looking at them. Epoch Times, EPOCH Times. Check it out. This graphic is from one of their articles. These are canceled energy projects or investments from 2015 to 2020. This doesn't even include recent years. Okay? This is just 5 years of Liberal rule. Grassy Point Liquid Natural Gas Project, West Coast Canada Liquid Natural Gas Project, Aurora LNG Project, Prince Rupert LNG Project, Pacific Northwest LNG, Quispa LNG Project in Alberta, the very place they want to destroy first. As I said, first over the wall. It'll be Alberta that suffers more than anybody, which is why Danielle Smith is doing the right thing and stands seemingly virtually alone for not only protecting the interests of Albertans, but actually protecting the interests of Canadians. Most Canadians, sad to say, are too naive and ignorant of the facts to understand how damaging what they're talking about doing will not just be for the economy, but for Canadian sovereignty overall. If we actually kick off this trade war, we lose. And we don't just, let's just pretend for a minute we could somehow beat the Americans. If we can beat the Americans, we lose to the Chinese. Like these guys, and this is the point, these guys have left us in a really bad spot, and now they want to act like heroes. Doug Ford wants to stand there with a Canada's not for sale cap, like he's some kind of revolutionary. I mean, God help us. Doug Ford is our national savior, for real. Guys like Bruce MacArthur and Andrew Cohn have completely forgotten what they've been doing for the last 4 years. Now all of a sudden they're promoting Doug Ford as a hero, and they should be. It's about time they figured out that Doug Ford is just right of the NDP. He's a false song for conservatives. The Liberals should be promoting him as a hero because he is them, but I digress. Dealing with just Alberta, the Frontier Oil Sands Mine Project, canceled. Aspen Oil Sands, canceled. Dunkirk Oil Sands, canceled. Muskwa, all of these things. It doesn't even matter what the name is. You can go and look at this graphic whenever you want. The fact of the matter is, every single one of these, and nowhere on here is, other than Northern Gateway Pipeline, Energy East is actually here. These are actually, let's make sure we look at that real quick. I'm just going to eliminate myself for a moment. This pipeline, these two pipelines would have done more to protect Canada from the very situation that we're in right now, the two on the bottom here, on the bottom right, than any other action, any other single action we could have taken. And they can both. If you actually wanted to secure for Canada other markets, you would have built these things. But all of the very people who are now standing and saying that Smith is a traitor for not uniting behind them and behind the nation, behind the country, these are the very same people that have shot the foundation out from under this country and have prevented new pillars from being built. Energy East and Northern Gateway would have been those pillars. We would have been more resilient against the very situation we find ourselves in right now. They led us here. And now they want you to believe that they're heroes. And while all of this is going on, Justin Trudeau, and again, the reason that this is so key and so important is because you have to understand that Jagmeet Singh and the Liberal Party and all of the members of the NDP have stood behind this guy this whole time, in spite of the NDP's rhetoric, which is why I think Jagmeet Singh is actually worse than Justin Trudeau, the worst hypocrite, the most spineless individual. He sold you out for a Rolex. He sold you out for his fashion choices. He sold you out for a seersucker suit and a pension. The whole country. Does it any wonder why people question his loyalty and what he's loyal to? He certainly isn't loyal to Canada, as much as his rhetoric might say so. I would love to have a conversation with Jagmeet Singh. I wish I could have been in that protester's shoes when Jagmeet Singh in Ottawa turned around and confronted him. I would have loved to have been there because I would have had the words. I wouldn't have had to fight the guy. Although, if he wanted to challenge me, maybe I would fight him for charity. I'd probably lose, to be honest with you. But maybe I could overcome. I would have loved to have been there to engage that conversation. It would have gone a lot better. Because this man is terrible. He doesn't love Canada. He doesn't love you. He doesn't care about you. He cares only about himself. And that is why he is worse than Justin Trudeau. But for the country's sake, in this moment of crisis, this moment where national unity might be on the line, this moment where national sovereignty might be on the line, at the very least, if we enter into the trade war, which seems to be impending, if we don't avoid it somehow, everybody's going to suffer in ways they don't even understand. I see a lot of people talking online. I do not think they understand what a doubling and tripling of the prices of the things you consume every single day will do to pensioners, will do to people who are they're talking all the time about Canadians are $200 away from insolvency, $200 away from being homeless. Do you understand what double and triple means? Do you understand what a 30-cent dollar means? That's where they're going to take you. This is like the final fall of Canada, and you people think that you're being virtuous, and what you're doing is you're being foolish. And as usual, in this world that we live in, the people trying to tell the truth and trying to spell it out are cursed and spat upon. And that's exactly what's happening to Danielle Smith right now. A lot of people see it, a lot of people don't. Scott Moe, you should be standing arm in arm with her because our fates are intertwined. We should be going everywhere together. Ottawa has never been good for Western Canada. This arrangement, this federation is designed to disadvantage us at every single turn. What are we uniting behind? Them destroying us further by sacrificing everything we have while they sit in Ottawa behind the castle that the taxpayer paid for, completely insulated from the consequences of their own actions? These beasts. Justin Trudeau, back to the point. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has announced that he will not run again in his Montreal riding in the next general election. At a moment where we need leadership the most, where we need a strong national figurehead behind a united government, he flees? Now, this is typical Trudeau for those of us who know, from Blackface and Gropergate all the way forward. We know who he is. I cannot for the life of me understand how the tone of his voice and the way that he delivers remarks can somehow supersede all of the facts as regard his actions. Are people not smarter than this? So we've been heading towards this moment for a long time. I can't believe it's real. But in the midst of all of the various crises this country faces, not only does he deny those crises exist, he runs like a coward. He leaves us with a leadership vacuum. And now the Liberal Party, Mark Carney, Chrystia Freeland, they're all going to pretend that none of this happened. I really wish Justin had ran for leadership again, but it was always a Hail Mary. It was never going to happen. But one can dream, because that would have been the only thing that forced them outside of their pretzel logic and denial, and they would have had to attack him on a record and at the same time attack themselves on the record, which is why it's not going to happen. They're hypocrites to a degree that the mind has a hard time containing. You can't put it all together in a single cohesive spoken word thought. You'd have to write a book, and even then it would be incomplete. In the middle of a national crisis, the Liberals are fiddling with a leadership vote. They've put the whole country on hold with the support of Jagmeet Singh, and it actually looks like they're already building the narrative to continue the coalition in March when we reconvene. Jagmeet's already using the language to say, you know what, maybe now is not the time to have an election. We need to unite behind the new leader of the Liberal Party for the sake of national unity. And the whole while, if they escalate this war with Trump, you are the ones that are going to be crushed. They will not miss a meal. They will not go homeless. They will not miss a paycheck. Their buying power may be reduced, but that's okay. They've got a lot of cushion. You don't. You don't have a cushion. So when you signal your support for Canada after you sat idly by all of these years while these politicians destroyed and undermined your nation, and now you're going to signal with placards because you've been told to. You've been told to have national pride all of a sudden, so now it's okay again. You're going to suffer for it. And I actually wonder if while you're suffering, you're just going to be pretending it's someone else's fault. You're not going to be blaming the right people. You're not going to put the responsibility on the right persons. I cannot believe the state that this man has left us in. And I cannot believe these people who supposedly run our country. They're running it into the ground. And that brings us to the fact that the Trump administration is due in just 4 days. The administration will be sworn in, and we will find out just how quickly this story is going to develop. But I find it interesting that Joe Biden gave his departing speech, and in that speech he warned of the threat of oligarchs, tech lords, and billionaires. He warned of their evil, he warned of their reach, and warned of the erosion of power, as if these were not things that were already of concern, as if it's going to be something new when Trump comes into office. Now, I've been honest with you. I've always said, leading up to the election, Trump's our best shot. Elon Musk is our best shot for somebody developing the various technologies that he's going to develop. Doesn't mean we're going to have good outcomes. And in fact, I've highlighted before how there's some worrying signs. But I still hold to some hope. I still think it was the best bet. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. But that being said, Biden is warning about these things. The theme of this video, if it's not already clear, is the hypocrisy that is so thorough. It is unbelievable to me. We used to have better liars in our political class. They lied more fluently and they lied more believably. But now they're so unbelievable that it defies my imagination. At the same time as the people are so gullible, they buy whatever they're fed from the medical experiment and all the things tied to all the things that happened back there. I'm trying not to hit keywords, but I probably already have, so it's probably all in vain anyway. People just accepted whatever they were told. They put whatever flag in their bio that they are told to put there. They put whatever symbols on their timeline, and they go with whatever the narrative is they're sold. And it's the same with this guy and his voter base. A lot of his voter base. So he's warning about oligarchs and billionaires. And yet, it's not just George Soros that he gave a Presidential Medal of Freedom to. It's Hillary Clinton. It's Bono. It's billionaires. The very same oligarchy that he's warning us about. But I guess there's good oligarchs and there's bad oligarchs. There's our oligarchs, and then there's their oligarchs. No, there is one oligarchy. They are not unitarian in their viewpoints. They are divided against one another. But that doesn't mean if you're going to speak a warning about oligarchy, that it should only be one-sided. The guy literally pins the highest medal he has at his disposal onto their chests, and in the next breath condemns them and their class. Absolutely fascinating. And another, just quickly, I want to look at this. This is Starmer. The leftist Labour government in Britain has proposed radical reforms to the rights of workers that could include classing sensitive topics of conversation in the workplace, such as religion, women's rights, transgenderism, as harassment. The proposed legislation would force employers to prevent workers from being subjected to such subjects by third parties, such as customers. Everybody, especially in Canada, should always be paying attention to what's happening in the British Isles, because what they do, we try and do here. Sometimes it's a little watered down, but the most recent example is Bill C-63. There are people serving jail sentences in Britain for sharing memes, lengthy sentences. Not just being in prison for their words, but being in prison for sharing the words of others. Going to court and losing. Bill C-63 was the foot in the door in this nation to that very same thing. The wording of the legislation was devastating. I believe I've talked about it since I've returned to video making, but maybe I haven't. The good news is it's dead. Because of Trudeau's narcissism, Bill C-63 is not an immediate threat to us. The legislation could be resurrected. I guess there's a chance it could receive royal assent if Jagmeet Singh decides to keep the government of the Liberals in power to give Carney a chance or give Freeland a chance. And God help us when it comes to Carney, too. This is a guy who doesn't even identify as Canadian. He's Michael Ignatieff 2.0. There's interviews out there where he talks about being a European. The memes are disgusting. I mean, they're trying to paint this guy as a hero of the people and so qualified as an economist. And Stephen Harper appointed him, as if that's a mark against the Conservative Party of Canada as it sits right now. Stephen Harper kicked off some of these processes that Trudeau threw wide open. If we had stuck with Harper, we wouldn't be so bad right now. That's for sure. But again, it's like Justin Trudeau shifted into top gear, whereas Stephen Harper was in low. I don't know how this is a winning argument. I don't know how Carney's a winning argument. And no matter what they do, they're not going to be able to pull the next election away from the Conservative Party of Canada. I don't see how it's possible. Because people, as much as people are blind to the hubris and the narcissism and the hypocrisy, they're not that blind. And you can see it in the poll numbers. They're not going to believe the charade. They're not going to be able to stomach a leadership debate in the Liberal Party where these people who supported Trudeau every step of the way with their words and with their votes try to pretend there's something different. It's not going to work this cycle. The public memory is short, but it's not that short. It's incredible to me. But Singh might prop them up all the same. And so some of these bits of legislation, attempted legislation, could come back. I don't see it, but it could happen. At any rate, you should always keep an eye on the British Isles. Bill C-63, they try it there first, and then they bring it here. And Britain's in bad shape, folks. Like, if you want to see the death of freedom in real time, if you want to see the death of the individual, and you want to see the death of human rights in the West, Britain's your capital. That's your future if we keep going down this road. And the other thing, and this I saved this for the end because this is only something I want people who actually watch the content to chime in on. At a future point, I've often thought about talking about spiritual content, biblical content. I've actually gone back when I was doing the C-19 coverage and people were worried, and I was trying to offer reassurance. I was trying to give people the advice that I thought they should not participate in the medical experiment before the medical experiment was even a rumor. I said it was going to be a bad idea. I showed people how to farm and be resilient, to feel at peace in their own surroundings while the world appeared to be going crazy. And there's a lot of people who indicated some benefit from that. During that time, I thought about doing some scriptural or spiritual content. And I started doing it, and I ended up deleting all those videos because I thought it was issuous. I thought maybe it was preposterous. But I'm wondering if there might be some interest in that. Maybe do a Sunday show or something. And it's not going to be anytime soon because I'd have to organize my thoughts and I'd have to really dive into how it is and what it is I want to present. But there's a lot to this world. Let me just open it that way. We have a rich archaeological history. And it's a history that goes back a lot further than 6,000 years. And we can see it, and we know it. We don't know who the pyramid builders were, but we do know that they were everywhere over the face of the earth. We don't know precisely when a lot of these things came into being, but we do know that it's from ancient antiquity. We can see on the Sphinx, for instance. Anybody that's in the know about this stuff knows that the Sphinx shows the evidence of water erosion, and you have to go back to the interglacial or before to find Egypt in that wet an environment that it could cause that type of erosion. Randall Carlson can talk to you about this. Grant Hancock has wrote fascinating books, and again, his opinions have changed over time. And good, honest, intellectual people, their opinions change as evidence comes in. But the world is far older and far more complex than the establishment gives it credit for. And I find it interesting that all around the world, we have erected gatekeepers, human gatekeepers, between us and spiritual knowledge, that we're supposed to go through the interpretations of man, not just for spiritual knowledge, but also for historical knowledge. You're not supposed to think for yourself. You're supposed to consult an Egyptologist when you want to look at archaeology. You're supposed to consult with experts, mainstream experts, that get all the airtime in the mainstream press and on TV. When it comes to understanding even your New Testament, you're supposed to pass through the hands of man. You're supposed to pass through the hands that have passed down this knowledge through Roman universalism for 1600 years without casting a glance back with your own eyes at the historical record and coming to your own conclusions. You're framed all around. You're framed and bounded by people standing between you and your own understanding of things. And I find that really captivating. I find that really interesting, and I find it unnecessary, particularly when it comes to understanding, for instance, what it was Yeshua was saying. Anyway, all that is to say is that content that people would be interested in, and again, I'm not looking to do it tomorrow. I have to be in the right frame of mind when I do it. But would you be interested in that, or would that turn you off? I'm Frank Vaughn. If you like the work, please go to the website and support it. Whether you sign up monthly through PayPal, or you send a donation, or you do whatever it is you do, please support it. And that way you know that I'll keep it going. I'll see you in the next one. Did you know that I have a website, frankvaughn.ca, the ultimate repository for all of my work, and a backup location just in case the censors come for me again? And if you like the content, please consider using the donate link in one of the options available. There are no paywalls, there is no advertising, and there is no Patreon, and I intend to keep it that way. Thank you for your time and your consideration.